Alaikum and welcome to episode 9 of After Class. Alhamdulillah, we have reached the penultimate episode of the season. Today I will be talking to Sahl-Ahmed Karim. His Instagram is at Sahl_Karim. If you can see it, it's right here. Thank you for joining Amara_M. I'm just going to invite Sahal now before so we can start the interview. Khadija Jusub Moti, I think you've joined all of my episodes thus far. Really appreciate it. That's what siblings are for. SAHL_, okay, invite. Is an educator, quite obviously. He's on After Class today, episode 9. But he's also a psychotherapist. He is a mental wellness practitioner. And in addition to that, he is an alternative medicine practitioner where he practices cupping. So Sahal will be joining us shortly. And while we're waiting for him to join, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my That Friday promotion that I'm running on my Instagram stories. So all you have to do, sorry. Okay, all you have to do is interact on my stories. There's a variety of ways to interact. So if you just play around on my stories, you'll figure out a way. And when you do, and when I do receive a response or a tag from you, then I will send you a very special message that gives you a 20 Rand gift card where you can choose to purchase a gift card at 20 Rand, or you can choose to take any other gift card and get 20 Rand off. So for example, you can purchase the 100 Rand gift card and get 20 Rand off that. So pay 80 Rand for the 100 Rand gift card. And that's the promotion that I'm running for that Friday, because I don't like the commercialization of this additional holiday in our lives. And so the gift cards will not expire. They are yours to keep and use whenever. There's no stress, there's no panic buying, there's no regret buying. It's just a gift card for you to have in your mailbox to use whenever you find something on the What Wady Says Wellness store that you would like to use it on. Or obviously you could gift the gift card to somebody else, and they could get a mental health boost of their own, if that's what you want to do. So I'm going to try inviting Sahal again. So Sahal is my very first male guest on After Class. I have had, this is episode 9, so I have spoken to 8 teachers previously. All of them were female, and this is my very first male guest. And I think it's important to get a male perspective on teacher wellness, because obviously there are many male teachers around, and we haven't heard their perspective of it yet. So while I'm waiting for Sahal, producer at Raisa, Dr. Jusuf, is working hard. Sahal has joined the video. Thank you, Sahal. We're waiting for you to join. I think you can accept the invitation. Assalamu alaikum, Sahal.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you, Wahida?
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah for joining us today.
Only a pleasure, man.
I gave our viewers a very brief introduction. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So my name is Sahl-Ahmed Karim. I'm from Johannesburg, 29 years old. I am a educator, FET phase educator. Recently branched off back into the corporate world. With that, I'm a psychotherapist, a wellness coach, and an alternate medicine practitioner. More specifically specializing in cupping.
That's a very well-rounded, I must say, mashallah. I did peek at your LinkedIn profile, and mashallah, it's quite full, and I see that you are, as I said, very well-rounded. So Sahal,
Yeah,
I know
thanks.
you have recently left the teaching field. Hopefully not forever. Hopefully it's just a sabbatical. But am I live? Hello?
Oh, sorry, wait, I lost you there.
Yes, I also lost you. It's fine. So I know that you have recently left the teaching profession, and I'm hoping that it's just a sabbatical. I'm hoping that it's not forever, because I mean we need good people like you to be the guide for our young ones. But I wanted to know, have you always wanted to be a teacher? How did you end up in the teaching industry?
So initially, yes, I did apply for teaching and I didn't get accepted. That was at Northwest University. And then after that, I studied medical bioscience for about 2 years, then branched off into business and psychology. And during those 4 years at university, I used to run a volunteer NPO and an NGO, which focused around educating kids and teaching them how to read and write and express themselves through reading and writing. And obviously, over time, that developed and it reached a point where we established these kids as actual young authors. And from there, I realized there's a lot of potential in teaching. That also helps you develop your own passion. It gives you some sort of a goal and an objective in life, obviously with a purpose. So that's what led me into teaching. So from there, obviously, I went to then study through UNISA for postgrad and so on. And yeah, that's where we are today.
That's good. So looking back 10 years then, did you see yourself where you are today?
Currently, no, I would never have thought that I would have enjoyed teaching that much, especially after leaving it. I mean, when you leave something that you've thoroughly enjoyed for such a long time, yeah, I mean, that just leaves some sort of a mark. So yeah, 10 years ago, no, I would never have thought I'd be here.
That's lovely. We have quite a few viewers, and I just want to remind them that if you do have any questions or comments for Sahal or for me, please leave them in the comments below, and we'll get to them at the very end. What would you say, Sahal, are your greatest achievements so far? Accomplishments?
Okay, so in terms of my career wise, I think working and being recognized and being rather left with the responsibility to teach an FET phase. I think that would be one of my greatest achievements, that my school or my HOD and my colleagues, my principal all believed in me and actually trusted me enough to stick and manage that aspect of FET. So I think that's one of the greatest achievements. Also managing, being able to manage and follow a passion in my career field. So I think that's really important, especially for teachers, that you enjoy what you're doing at all times. So yeah, I think that's the greatest accomplishment, that I actually enjoy and love what I do.
Most definitely, that's amazing. So what would you say is a typical day in Sahal's life?
Okay, so when I was at school, yes, waking up at around quarter to 7. I mean, school was just about a 2 or 3 minute drive away. One of the things that I extremely and exceptionally miss about teaching where I used to teach. Getting to school at around 7:30, having our briefings in the morning, then heading to classes throughout the day, leaving school at around 3 o'clock. After 3, the East time, maybe go to gym for a little while, come back, try to help out with some stuff maybe around the house or even some community projects that I used to be involved in. And then, yeah, that's about it. And the same routine the next day.
Okay, so yeah, typical teacher's life, eh? A busy, busy,
Exactly.
busy. Many people who have entered the field of teaching say that there has been a teacher in their life, maybe when they were younger, or maybe even during their teaching practice sessions, a teacher who became their muse, a teacher who inspired them. Who would say is your teacher muse?
That's actually a very, very long list. So when I was in secondary school, we had our English teacher, Miss Chantal Dutoy. I think she played the biggest role in sort of cultivating the idea of becoming a teacher, and that, you know, teaching is not just about the classroom; it extends to out of the classroom as well. She used to take us for these competitions, United Nations debates, international speeches, and so on. So that was one of, like, I think my greatest news in terms of speaking about my career. Then obviously, you know, once you do reach the field and you're now, you know, fully fledged in the field, I think your colleagues play a very, very big role in shaping you and allowing you to develop as a great teacher. And for me, I mean, I've had enough of those. I think my former HOD would be one of them, and then there's four colleagues in specific at school. Yeah, I think even through, I mean, you know, it got to a point where, you know, you're supposed to be so comfortable to your colleagues that they should be able to shout at you, but at the same time mentor you. And also, by just having a colleague like that, it's a leaning, a shoulder to lean on, or a helping hand, especially if they've been in the field longer than you are. So yeah, I'd say the four colleagues, they know who they are. I'm sure they're even watching at the moment. But yeah, they've really helped me a lot in that time.
That's amazing. It's very often we in our earliest memories we find ourselves used to play school and games like that, and very often it becomes a reality, and it doesn't happen for everybody. So I'm glad it happened for you. Um, so again, I know that you just recently left the field, but I'm sure you must have some teacher goals, or you must have had some teacher goals, or something that you would like to work towards for yourself, if you'd like to share that with us.
No, definitely. To a certain extent, I'm still involved with my former school, running initiatives or projects, or, you know, whatever it is that I can still help around with. In terms of teaching, yeah, I'm still going to carry on with my tuition classes or any extra classes that the learners need. So I mean, I only left about 3 weeks. Then I mean, I was done with syllabus and curriculum. I mean, you know, they come a point when a learner maybe needs a little bit of extra help, and because I was teaching matrics, so I still do have learners that, you know, message me and ask for help and whatever it is. So in that sense, my goal would be, I'd still like to be present in the teaching field and be somewhat recognized still as an educator. And even if it's just not in the classroom, I mean, out of the classroom, it would be also important to be recognized as a teacher. So the help doesn't just only limit, or rather, my help and my knowledge is not only limited to the classroom, but out of the classroom as well, whether it's on a local platform or an international platform, voluntary basis or not.
I'm glad to hear that you've still kept your foot in the door, because like I said, we don't want to lose any more teachers. The retention in the field, it's becoming difficult to keep teachers in here, and when we have the good ones, we have to keep them. So in the schools that you have been in, I want to talk about the culture in schools, and from your experience, what has been the culture in the schools that you have been in?
Okay, so the school that I used to be at, the culture was very diverse. I mean, we were always encouraged to learn other people's cultures, even to get involved with them. So recently, on 24th September, we had our Heritage Day celebrations, and we all were encouraged, you know, to maybe dress up as another culture. So the culture was very, very diverse. It was very open. People recognized each other as family, and not just as colleagues. So I'd say the culture was very, very comfortable, maybe. It was diverse. It was a very encouraging culture as well.
Okay, so all in all, a very positive work environment.
No, definitely. And I mean, you know, with every workplace, there are pros and cons, but I mean, you know, it just depends how you deal with those pros and cons.
Yes, most definitely. I often say, and this is some of, I think, my own experience, I often say that working at a school is very similar to living with your in-laws, where you sometimes just have to keep quiet, move ahead, do your job, do the best that you can, and then so sometimes in some schools there are obviously negatives in any work environment, not just schools. And it's, as you said, what you make of it and what you take from it is what's important. So as a teacher, what would you say were some of your the challenges that you've experienced in general?
Okay, so in general, I think it would be resources. I mean, obviously working for a government, a public school, you're not exactly limited to resources, but to sort of procure those resources it's a very, very challenging task. And I mean, a lot of the times you'd actually reach a point where you'd say, you just pay for it on your own. So resources, I think, was one of the greatest challenges. Also, I think the whole the protocol and the process in which the Department of Basic Education does things, it's very tedious. There's a lot of things that you need to follow, and sometimes it's just completely unnecessary. And I think for a new teacher, being able to get used to those processes, it can be extremely challenging. It can, I mean, I've seen teachers who've lost their marbles just by following procedure and protocols that are laid out there. And then you'll get the teacher who's innovative and loosely saying they'll find a loophole around it. And I mean, they'll be grateful for those teachers who read all the policies. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of red tape around things that are unnecessary.
Well, Timothy, you brought up two topics that don't often get spoken about. It's the things that teachers pay for out of their own pocket, number one, and number two, the service delivery from the Department of Basic Education. Two very, very important topics that really need to be dealt with, and dealing with them would directly influence the mental health, or improve the mental health of teachers who are currently in the industry. So I want to move on to more current aspects, in particular the pandemic that we are also aware of. So how have the past 20 or so months impacted on your work and home environment?
Okay, so I think last year was the greatest challenge that we faced in terms of the pandemic. I mean, that whole period from March up until June, there was so much uncertainty if we were going to return back to school on time or not. And at that time, our greatest concern was our grade 11s and our grade 12s. And, coming from a government school, and also where not all kids are privileged enough to have online services, it was our only way to communicate, work with the kids. So I mean, dealing with learners over WhatsApp, that was the most that we could do. But then also, I mean, there's a whole aspect that comes into play where do learners actually respect the privacy of a teacher and their numbers? I mean, you get crazy prank calls at night, and there's nothing you can do about it, because I mean, you're almost forced to have your number out there, your private details all out there. So I think maybe that was one of the challenges. Also, relying and trusting the learner to do the work on their own. I mean, you come back after a few months, you really can't expect a learner now to be fully fledged and, full speed in working. They need to get used to the routine. They need to get used to the pace that they were working. I mean, they've also got socioeconomic challenges at home, which we as teachers need to take into consideration. So that was also another challenge I think that we faced. Over time, obviously things had eased out. Unfortunately, it looks like we're heading back to that routine. But in this year, I think also another challenge that the other grades face is coming twice a week to school. How much can you actually learn and retain in 2 days a week at school? I mean, it was a little ridiculous, but it was the only option that we had.
Most definitely. Very common aspects that I think not only nationally, but I think internationally as well. This whole pandemic turned everything upside down. It really, really affected us as teachers and the learners as well. And you did mention that with the learners doing work, example for you or via WhatsApp, and for myself as well, we also come from the school where the socioeconomic levels of the learners were also quite low, so we had to resort to WhatsApp, and that too we couldn't reach everyone with that on that platform. And so it was very difficult, but we found that when the learners came back, there was a drastic drop in their abilities. Did you see the same in your...
Yeah, no, definitely.
So
We
their
did.
attitudes and abilities, yeah.
No, 100%. We noticed there was a change in attitude towards work. There was obviously a change in attitude, even respect to a certain extent. And I mean, we didn't entirely blame them because they, according to them, they were only seeing us twice a week. So we weren't playing exactly a very prevalent role in their lives in shaping education and their personalities. So yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. There was a drastic change.
Okay, so how have you personally been able to cope with all of these changes?
Oh wow.
Or
Okay.
were you able
Um,
to?
Personally dealing with it, I think as a teacher, you're just forced to sort of embrace it. You're encouraged to adapt to the situation. Try to make the best of the situation as well. I mean, there are days where you crash and burn, and you don't know what you need to do. But then, I mean, that's when your supervisor, your principal, your colleagues come into play. So personally, I think I just had a very good I had a very good way of organizing my task. I had a very good way of communicating with my learners as well. And I think the most important thing for me in dealing with all of this was just being able to relate to my learners, being able to relate to them, that knowing, okay, you know what, some of you might be battling at home financially, some of you might have lost loved ones. So okay, we relate to each other, we empathetic towards each other as well out of the classroom. But then coming into the classroom, we draw the line and we say, okay, look, we need to get stuff done here. So I think just being able to have that skill was one of the ways that I personally dealt with everything.
That's amazing. Not everybody has that, but you did mention a very supportive work environment, supportive colleagues, and having that support structure is so important for teachers. Um, so, the reason I started this after class series, Sahal, was to bring attention or put the spotlight on the mental health of teachers, not just during COVID, but just generally. Because I feel that there's more and more being put on a teacher's plate, and not everyone can easily adapt to it, and not everyone takes to it as well as the others. And so I'm going to move on to mental health now. Have you noticed a change in your own mental health since the onset of or we can talk about since the onset of COVID, but also since becoming a teacher? I mean, I know you do have your background in psychology as well, so you could maybe give us that perspective.
That's actually quite a funny one. I mean, well, generally speaking, I'm a very outspoken person. I express myself whenever I need to, so I don't really bottle up things. So, I mean, my colleagues would know, okay, when Saul's having a crap day. They'll know when, okay, Saul's irritated with his learners, or they'll know when Saul's, maybe just not coping well. Yeah, I think especially with COVID, it does take a very large toll on your mental health. I think to the extent where you don't know what to expect. It's the uncertainty of, okay, is legislation going to change? Is the policy going to change? Are the ATPs going to change? And then you reach a point of frustration where you actually do complete all the ATPs, you complete all the planning, and then comes boom, there's a change here and there. So it does affect you mentally. I mean, some days you're not even in the mood to do a complete lesson because the times and the periods change. From a 35-minute period, you're now moved over to a 55-minute period. And then once you lose your learner's focus, and you don't blame them as well, you then just feel like, okay, I'm not doing enough. Am I teaching for the entire period? Am I covering syllabus? Am I, completing everything on time? And then obviously the whole thing about marking comes into play. I think marking is the one time when all teachers just lose their marbles. And funny enough, at my former school, we actually used to just warn each other, okay, look, I have marking to do. I'm gonna go crazy. If I do go crazy and I tell you something, I'm extremely sorry for it in advance. But yeah, but alhamdulillah, I think we had a good understanding amongst ourselves, so it was good. But yes, mental health, especially with COVID, I think it's just the agony and uncertainty that influences everything.
Most definitely. So, what after a particularly bad day, or one of the ones that you just described, what would help you to wind down? Do you have any private rituals that you do after a particularly bad day that help you to just calm down or wind down, de-stress?
There is. I'm not extremely proud to say it, but I'd usually go home, chill out for a bit after lunch. I'd light me a hookah or a shisha for a little while, maybe some coffee with it. Or if I don't have the time or the liberty of doing that, then I'd obviously, just take a drive with listening to something, maybe grab a McDonald's coffee or something. Yeah, I think that's a ritual. So I think most importantly, it's just the alone time, just being able to process your day, process your thoughts, and have a plan for the next day.
Well, Stephanie, I think it's important for each person to individually recognize what they need for their own self-care, and it's different for everybody. It's whatever's unique, to you, and whatever makes you feel better. It's best that you, take time out and actually do that, and in that way, um, oh, we've got a lovely comment here. And in that way, you keep your mental health strong. It's so amazing seeing it from a male's perspective. Really interesting. Thank you, Khadija Jusuf Moti, for your comment. I think Raisa will be giving us more comments. Oh, okay. So, Sahal, with using your background now of the psychotherapy and the mental wellness, that background, and then also the experience you have in the teaching field, would you say there is a need for a more formal conversation about the mental health of educators?
100%. I think more importantly, and more than just having a formal conversation, I think there needs to be an open discussion about the narrative of mental health within the profession, as well as how you so well put it, after class. There needs to be, I don't think entirely necessarily a support structure, but it just needs to be prevalent. I mean, people need to realize that teaching is not just a 7 to 3 o'clock job. There's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot of, if I may loosely put it, there's a lot of burdens that we take on from our learners. There's just a lot of strain that you get also from the service delivery department. There's just way too much. I mean, the other day I was speaking to someone and they said, "Oh, you must be missing teaching. Obviously the holidays and everything that comes with it." And I was like, "No, I don't really miss that aspect, because during the holiday you're busy with planning, you're maybe busy with marking, and when you come home at 3 o'clock, you're not done with your day. There's maybe planning to do, there's maybe marking to do, maybe there's moderation to do. I mean, it doesn't end there. So I think because a lot of people don't understand the responsibilities and the role of an actual teacher in today's time, they assume that, okay, teachers have it very easy. Whereas, there's a lot of teachers that don't have enough time to deal with their own personal issues. And unfortunately, sometimes those issues makes its way into the classroom. And we've seen teachers, we've seen colleagues taking out their own personal frustrations on learners. So I mean, that's one of the ways that all these things can be combated and dealt with, is having an open discussion around our mental health. And I think to have your learners relate to you, it's also important, because when your learner understands, okay, my teacher's maybe going through something at the moment, I don't necessarily need to know all the details about it, but at least I understand my teacher's having a bad day, or my teacher's dealing with an issue at home, or my teachers are just swamped with a lot of work. So I think allowing your learner a little bit into your own personal space helps you in the classroom as an individual.
Yes, yes. I did get most of what you said, although the connection was a little bit bad in the middle. But most definitely, there is a formal need for the conversation to open up about mental health. And as you said, not all teachers are equipped with not all teachers are equipped for the social and, I think, emotional demands that the classroom brings. Sahal, we've come almost to the end of our interview, and I was wondering if you have any parting advice that you would like to give the viewers. Oh, we can't hear you. Sahel, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes. I think we're having a poor connection because the weather turned very drastically. I don't know how it is where you are, but if you did give any parting advice, we didn't hear it. Oh, we're going to cut it. On your side, is it paused? Okay, I can't hear him though. I'm going to ask him to write it for me. Sahal, can you hear me? I can't hear you. I'm glad that you can hear me. We didn't hear the answer to your last question, the parting advice. Can I ask you to please give me something in writing, just a little paragraph, and I'll put it onto my blog where I'm uploading the video. You can nod if you hear me. Okay, perfect. Jazakallah. Thank you so much for joining us, Sahal. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.